something woke me up. It was 3:03 in the morning. I had gotten used to it, but this time it was different. "Elena," I heard my boyfriend call me, but his voice sounded very different and distant. I assumed it was because I was still in a deep sleep, even though he was lying right next to me. "Elena," as I could, I turned towards him and opened my eyes, but as soon as I did, the paralysis hit again. However, I could see him deeply asleep on his side with his face towards me. "Elena," then I realized that the one calling me wasn't him, it was someone behind me. There was someone in our room. I heard the bed move, something climbed up, something was getting closer. Then I saw the fingers of two hands, blackened with dirt, long and starting to wrap around my boyfriend's shoulder. I saw very dirty hair begin to rise behind him. There was someone in the bed, appearing behind him, revealing themselves. "Elena," that person said to me, music, smiling, "Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a new chapter of Tales of the Night." And I have to be honest with you, I don't know whether to tell you that the next story is about witches, about nightmarish dreams that announce something terrible about to happen, or about the truths they might show us. Maybe this story is about a sick and terrifying person who seeks the doors of neighboring houses, hoping to find one open to enter. I don't know, to be honest, I don't know what the truth is behind what you're about to hear. I just ask that you do so with caution, without playing around, and without taking it lightly, because as you know, you never know what you might be calling when listening to stories like this. If this is one of the chapters you prefer to skip, I understand. We'll hear each other in the next one, no problem. But if you dare to listen from this moment on, it is no longer our responsibility what might happen. My name is Uriel Reyes, and you are about to enter the world of Tales of the Night. The first strange dream I had, when I thought it was just sleep paralysis, was when I was a child. I remember it well because at that time, before anyone explained to me what was behind it and that I didn't need to worry, those episodes seemed absolutely terrifying to me. On that occasion, I fell asleep hearing my parents fight. They had never reached physical aggression, but days before, my mom had thrown one of my toys at my dad, the one she kept squeezing harder and harder as the argument escalated. A small pony. My dad was cruel with his words and always knew where to attack her, where to break her. He told her she gave up everything to be a mom, to be a housewife, and that she couldn't even do that right, that she couldn't even do that without feeling like she was enough. You can probably imagine the next thing I remember, seeing him bend down, my toy barely passing over his head, and then the eyes of fury from my mom, completely filled with anger, rage, eyes I had never seen before. I remember that moment of silence when neither of them dared to say anything. And although what I felt was surprise and a lot of fear, I decided to do something, cry and scream. In my crying, I didn't want to do it, but it was the only thing I could think of at that moment to draw attention to me, to stop that argument from escalating any further. And it worked, that time it worked. But I couldn't do it all the time. I was afraid that line would be crossed again. I was tired, more and more tired. My brother had moved away from our city to live with my uncles and study at the university. I'm pretty sure, although he never confessed it, that he studied precisely a career that wasn't offered in the city we lived in so he could leave. And in Mexico, unlike the United States and other countries, children usually live with their parents until they finish their studies, but he was determined not to do so. And that's how he managed it. And he left me with that burden, with me worrying every day, with me being just a child and not deserving it. And it exhausted me to hear over and over again that they were together only for me, only because they loved me. And it took me so long to forgive myself for that, because I felt that then their unhappiness, which was shown every day, was completely my fault, that it was my responsibility that they stayed together. And now, in that moment as well, that they wouldn't kill each other. One night that followed a day in which they fought since the morning, I simply decided to go to bed, try to sleep, but I could hear their voices arguing in the living room and then in their room. Then I heard my mom go out to sleep in the living room and my dad go out after her because they hadn't finished fighting. I heard heavy footsteps stomping as they walked from the living room to their room, passing in front of my door. Then I heard them walking back and forth, passing one time after another. Finally I opened my eyes, but I couldn't move. I realized I couldn't move. The door was open. I saw that thing passing from side to side while my parents were fighting without noticing that presence. It was a stain, a red stain, a burned red, almost black. I saw it blurry between my tearful eyes. I tried to concentrate, to focus. I saw it pass again and then it stayed still in front of my open door. I realized I had seen it. It stood there looking at me. After a few seconds I could start to take the... I don't know if I saw it or if my eyes did it for me, if my brain tried to see an image it recognized. What was outside my room was a red being with horns like the one from the lottery. It held its color in its hands and kept staring at me. It wasn't laughing, but I could feel something mocking coming from it. I didn't need to see it. Then it kept walking back and forth down the hallway again and again while I stayed there, unable to move, crying from fear, crying from anger. The dreams became sporadic, but in retrospect I realized that many of them happened in times far before my life, good and bad, mostly bad. The few deaths that have occurred in my family have all been horrible and all preceded by one of these dreams. I was 17 when I woke up again at 3 in the morning. I didn't see the clock, but I knew it was always like this. My room was completely dark. I always left a small lamp on, I was afraid of the dark. But someone had turned it off, even though the button was stiff and there was no way it could happen by electrical error. I woke up and couldn't fully open my eyes, I couldn't move. As minutes passed, I began to wake up, in quotes, because I started forgetting the dream I was having, because I became more aware, because I could try to see, to search with my eyes through the room. But I still couldn't move, my body was completely rigid. Then I saw something in the corner of my room, sitting. There was no chair there, but that thing seemed to be sitting on one. It was very dark, but as my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I thought I recognized something. A shape. It was a woman sitting there, with a long skirt, like several layers of fabric, with her hands in front of her, on her knees. She had ruffles on her sleeves and was staring straight ahead at the other side of the wall, smiling. I tried to sleep, tried to stop looking at her. It felt very wrong, it made me extremely uncomfortable that she was there, although I wanted to think it was just something from my imagination. I opened my eyes again and now she was looking at me. Her head was still facing forward, but her eyes, completely twisted, were looking at me sideways, still showing that horrible smile. Every time I opened my eyes she was there. I was able to stop seeing her about an hour later when I heard my dad get up earlier than usual. He showered, got ready and left. He didn't come by to say goodbye to me, I just heard how he took the car out with some difficulty that morning and left. I had an event at work that afternoon after lunch. I had some sort of celebration meeting on the building's terrace where their offices were. My dad mingled, talked to everyone the usual. He even joked with his colleagues. Suddenly he left his drink on the table, wiped his mouth with a napkin, turned around and walked towards the edge of the terrace. They called us to notify us an hour later. What was strange was that the days before there had been no arguments, he hadn't scolded me, nothing had happened that could indicate that something like this was about to happen or that it was even a possibility. I never imagined my dad as someone who could hurt himself, and those last weeks had even been somewhat calm at home. My mom later said that maybe that had been the calm before the storm. I had another one of those dreams on the other night that marked my life forever. I was still living with my mom, but she wasn't there. I was celebrating the 25th wedding anniversary, I think, of her best friend. She had insisted that I go, that it would do me good, that Julia, her friend's daughter, wanted to reconnect with me, be friends like we were when we were kids. But the truth is that I find the Friesic people incredibly boring, so I decided to stay home. When 3 a.m. came, I opened my eyes, I heard my mom coming home. She walked to the door of my room, opened it. I pretended to be asleep so she wouldn't talk to me, but I heard how she simply entered and crawled under my bed. "I'm here below. Don't look at me, don't look at me, don't look at me, please." The voice was my mom's, but at the same time a different voice. I had never felt like this. I was very scared, but the fact that she said that made me feel like I had to see, that I had to look under the bed. There was something they didn't want me to see, something I had to see. Then I realized that suddenly I could move. The most I did was peek a little from the top of the bed, but I didn't dare go down. I fell asleep like I always do when this happens, without daring to run away. In the morning we received a call. It was my brother's girlfriend. She said they were at a party in the early morning. He went outside to smoke. When a black car with tinted windows arrived, neither she nor the people around her could see inside. They only saw the car stop next to my brother. Someone lowered the window and spoke to him. My brother turned to them, waved goodbye to his girlfriend and got into the car. That was the last time she saw him. It had been hours without hearing from him, so she decided to contact us to see if we had any clue about who could have been the one who came for him. We had no idea who it could have been. We hadn't seen him in a couple of years and we didn't. We saw each other again. No one ever heard anything from him or the car he got into. It was as if the earth had swallowed him whole, and maybe I don't say it with the sorrow I should, I know, but the age difference made us not the closest siblings. And once he left the city he rarely came back. He drifted away from us, especially after our father died, which I always felt he believed was our responsibility. Before I continue, I want to thank you for staying here and remind you that, when there are chapters or episodes you like more, let us know with a comment or a message on social media. It's really important for us to know what kind of content you enjoy most, what you want to hear. In the description of this episode, you'll find all the links and information you need to become part of this community. And now let's continue, let's go on with the rest of the story. After this, I had fewer and fewer